According to the story of the film, a ghostly face killer has returned to the city. A young woman, Tara, is introduced at the beginning of the movie. She was talking to her friend Amber while working in the kitchen. There is a call on the landline and the man at the other end wants to talk to Tara's friend Amber. Tara says Amber isn't at home right now. The man scares Tara and says just imagine a girl is alone at home and a man asks her to play the game with him while calling her. Tara gets panicked hearing this and the man tells Tara about a movie. In that movie, the killer calls the people like this and plays games with them. Now, this is happening to Tara and she gets panicked. She turns on the security lock of her house. The man on the call talking to Tara sends Amber's video. He sends a video of her friend and asks her to play a game with him. He says, I will ask you 3 questions. If you will answer any question wrong, I will end your friend. It means the phone of Tara's friend was used by someone else. Tara was ready to play the game to save her friend and gives 2 answers correctly, but when the killer asks the 3rd question, she answers it wrong. The man on the call talking to Tara says there are 2 killers in every movie and tells the name of the killer. He ends the call while saying, now your friend will die. Tara calls the police and runs to open her door. As she opens the door, the Ghostface killer attacks her. He attacks Tara while coming inside the house. He stabs Tara with his knife. Meanwhile, the police arrive but the killer escapes. Tara's sister is shown, who is with her friend. She lived in another city and now talking to her friend. Knowing about the attack on her sister, she leaves for her hometown with her friend. Later, some friends of Tara are shown talking about her attack. A boy is shown who is stalking a girl from their group. He waves her a hand. They move to the hospital for Tara. Tara's sister is shown, who was on the way with her friend. She was telling her friend about her city and the Ghostface killer as well. Because there was an attack on her sister like those movies. Tara's sister reaches the hospital and meets her friends. She meets her friend who has given her information about Tara. He was the son of the deputy officer. She meets the other friends of Tara and there were twin siblings in Tara's friends. She meets her best friend Amber. Amber was the girl whose video was shared by the killer to Tara. They go out of the room because Tara wants to meet her sister alone. Tara tells her sister while weeping the Ghostface killer has returned to this city. Now he will end us. Later, the scene shifts and a club is shown. Tara's friends were there and one of their friends gets into a fight with a man. He was the man who was waving his hand while standing near his car. That man got into a fight, so he comes out of the club. As he moves out of the club, a man turns on the headlights of his car behind him. He goes near the car but there wasn't anyone inside. Meanwhile, the Ghostface killer comes from behind and ends him while stabbing him. Tara's sister is shown, who is with Tara in the hospital. She was sleeping with Tara but she awake and finds her friend who was watching the old movie and wanted to know about the killer. Tara's sister comes to the cafeteria for purchasing her medicine. Meanwhile, she sees an image of a man in the mirror. The man asks her to tell the secret and says tell her secret to Tara. Suddenly, Tara's sister receives a call from the killer. She picks up the call and talks to the killer while saying, if you have the courage, come in front of me. The killer opens the door and attacks her from behind. Tara's sister somehow escapes from the killer and runs to the reception of the hospital. She finds a police officer there and sends the police officer to the cafeteria, but he finds none there. On the other hand, the deputy officer was investigating Tara's friends. She asks Amber some questions. Because Tara gets a call from Amber's phone, but she tells that she has forgotten her phone here. The deputy officer summons Tara's sister and informs, you have caused numerous problems in this city. Now I don't want any problem because of your family and ask her to stay away from her son. Tara's sister goes to her and tells her the secret of her family. She tells her mother was in a relationship with 2 boys in her college days. One was their father and the other was the man she saw in the mirror. He was a killer. Tara's sister discovers from her mother's diary she is the daughter of the man whom she saw. She tells her father has heard this when I was asking this from her mother. That's why he left her. Because our mother has cheated on our father. Tara becomes angry with her sister after hearing this secret. She asks her to leave the room and Tara's sister meets her friend leaving the room. He has heard their conversation. He makes her friend understand there isn't your mistake. None was helping them, so Tara's sister takes her friend to the old officer of this city. The old officer of the city also refuses to help them. When they leave, he calls his friend Sydney. She was an old survivor. A Ghostface killer has come to this city after 25 years and he has come because he wants to end Sydney. The officer tells her about the new killer in the city. He asks her to take care of her. Later, the officer calls his friend. She was now a news anchor and the officer realizes his past. He gets ready to help Tara's friend. Tara's friend arrives at Tara's twin siblings' friend's house, accompanied by the old officer. Tara's friends were there and Tara's sister tell this secret to everyone. They talk about the murders happening in the city. They talk about the murders are happening like in that movie. Maybe the killer is doing this because he wants to make a sequel to this movie. Everyone was speculating on who the murderer was. One of their friends says the killer is often the person about whom none thinks or suspects, and they all suspect Tara's sister. Tara's sister leaves while taking her car, being angry. She again sees that man's image while driving the car. The man says, "You can't run like this." Tara's sister decides to stop. The deputy officer is shown in her kitchen and someone knocks at the door. She goes to check the door while holding a knife. She finds her son there and he goes for taking a shower after saying her to relax. She also goes out to complete her tasks and receives a phone call from the killer on the way. He says, "I am going to end your son at your home." Her mother calls the police, being panicked. Later, she returns to her home. She was calling her son, but he was busy taking shower. She reaches and runs towards her home, but the killer ends her on the way while stabbing her. Her son notices after taking a shower the door was open. He might not have closed it. Before he could understand anything, the police have surrounded the deputy officer's home. Tara's sister reaches there with the old officer of the city and discovers the killer has ended them. The old officer of the city meets his friend, who was a news anchor. They met after 5 years. Tara's sister calls her friend and tells him the killer has ended the deputy officer and her son. Tara's sister sees the officer who was placed as a guardian of Tara in the hospital. She scolds the officer why he has come here while leaving Tara alone. She hurriedly leaves for the hospital with the old officer. Tara was also feeling in the hospital like there is someone around her. She was leaving on the wheelchair from there, but the light of the hospital was gone. Reaching out of the room, Tara finds a dead body of an officer and she hides after seeing it. She starts calling the police. Someone comes toward Tara and she attacks that person without seeing him. He wasn't any killer but a friend of Tara's sister who comes to save Tara, as his friend said. Before they understand the situation, the killer arrives there. He attacks and makes them injured. Meanwhile, Tara's sister calls her friend and the killer receives the call. Then the killer says to Tara's sister she has to choose one among her sister or her friend. The killer was about to end Tara, but then a lift opens in front of him and there was Tara's sister with the old officer of the city in it. Reaching there, they fire at the killer and he runs from there. Tara's sister and the officer manage to flee and make their way to the lift. The killer again arrives there and attacks the officer. The officer fires the killer with his gun and was thinking maybe he has ended the killer. He again comes near the killer. He comes near the killer while loading his gun. Suddenly, the Ghostface killer ends the officer while stabbing him with his knife. The officer's friend also comes to the hospital. She was a news anchor and depressed about his death. The officer's friend named Sydney also arrives and feels sad about his death. They meet and decide they will catch the killer. They set on their mission. Tara and her friend's relationship also become good. Tara's sister says she will take her far from this city when she will discharge from here. But Sydney and the news anchor stop them. They stop them to go out of the city because they will be in trouble if they will do this. Tara's sister ignores them and leaves. Sydney is shown chasing Tara's sister while tracking her phone. Tara, her friend, and her sister were moving to the city meanwhile. Tara says her asthma pump is left at home. The friend of Tara's sister forbids them to go home. They return home and a party was thrown by Amber at home. Amber comes to the basement for taking beer, and when he shuts the door of the fridge, her friend was standing there. Amber gets scared seeing her, and her friend was suspecting her the killer. Their two friends get into a fight at the party place. Her friend, who left after fighting, wasn't replying to her messages. Their friend goes out in search of his friend with a weapon. The Ghostface killer arrives there. He attacks the boy. The boy tries to escape, but he was also ended. Meanwhile, Tara, her friend and her sister arrive, and the killer runs from there, seeing everyone. As the party ends, Tara's sister asks everyone to go inside. The friend of Tara's sister asks his friend about beer. She tells him the beer is in the basement. He was scared of going into the basement, and their friend, who went after fighting, also arrives there. The sister of the twin siblings tells him, "My brother is looking for you." Their friend goes out for finding him. Tara's sister is shown, who receives Sydney's call. She says the killer often visits the place. "Where are you at this time?" Tara's sister gets shocked hearing this and thinks about how Sydney has discovered her location. The sister of the twin siblings is shown watching the movie while sitting. The killer attacks her from behind like in the movie. Tara's sister arrives there when she screams. She attacks the killer with a lamp to save her. Everyone arrives and thinks Tara's sister has attacked her. But Tara's sister removes their suspicion. Their friend also arrives, who went outside in search of her friend. She was weeping and tells them the dead body of their friend is outside. His body is injured and they suspect their friend. She says, "I haven't done murder." Amber takes out her gun and ends her while shooting her. She says, "Yes, I know you haven't done murder." It means none other than Amber was the killer. Amber was about to end Tara's sister, but her friend takes her to the basement. Tara's sister tries to move upside and goes to save Tara, but her friend forbids her. He claims that in each film, there are two assassins. He is saying the same we saw at the start of the movie. When the killer was telling Tara there is always two killers in the movie, her friend says maybe Tara is the second killer. Even then she runs from there while showing him a knife to save her sister. When Sydney and the news anchor come out of their house, Amber comes while screaming. She acts like she is injured badly. They understand that Amber is doing a drama. Meanwhile, the news anchor attacks Amber. She moves inside while shooting her. On the other hand, Tara's sister has also found Tara. She was tied in a cupboard. She remembers what her friend said before releasing her. He's sad maybe the second killer is none other than Tara. She stops there while remembering this. Sydney comes inside the house and receives the call of the killer. But she cuts his call and opens a room there. Tara's friend's friend was hiding there. Meanwhile, the Ghostface killer attacks him. Sydney pushes him and picks up his gun. Meanwhile, the friend of Tara's friend arrives and stabs Sydney. The killers bring Tara's sister and Sydney into the kitchen. They tell them they are a fan of stab movies. "We have done this drama to bring Sydney back." They want to end Sydney, but Tara's sister tells them she didn't end Tara. She had called the police until now. Amber moves in search of Tara. Tara attacks Amber and makes her fall there. On the other hand, Tara's sister also attacks her friend and runs from there. Amber throws Tara far and then again comes into the kitchen. She meets Sydney and the news anchor arriving at the kitchen. She was thinking she has ended them while firing. They fire at Amber there. She falls there on gas after being shot a bullet. She was burned. There was the friend of Tara's sister behind her, but she attacks him. They fell from the stairs. The friend of Tara's sister was trapping her, but then she sees an image in the mirror. This was the man who was having an affair with Tara's mother. Tara's sister was their daughter. The man asks, "Whom daughter are you?" Tara's sister secretly tries to pick up a knife. It was under the table. She says while picking up the knife, "Never consider a killer's daughter weak." She attacks her friend badly. She ends him while stabbing him repeatedly. Sydney and the news anchor arrive and understand why Tara's sister has done this. Amber comes to them, who didn't die yet. she comes to attack them with a knife. Meanwhile, Tara fires her with her gun. Amber dies. The police are shown arriving there in the end. Tara's sister thanks Sydney and the news anchor. After it, she sits with her sister in the ambulance. This is the end of the movie. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, then please like, share the video, and subscribe the channel for more interesting videos.